It's great to see everyone. My name is Stacy Lauman. I'm the Acting Executive Director of CLAM. I'm so happy to see you all tonight. Does everyone hear me okay? Nodding? Okay, super, thank you. Thanks for letting me know that. So we have an hour conversation tonight, and I want to welcome everyone here, and just to say that before we get started, I want to start with a few housekeeping items. And first, I want to say that we are very fortunate to have a couple people helping us with this meeting. One of our key people is Avery, and Avery's managing the Zoom meeting. So we're also very fortunate to have Cristina Salcedo today, and she is providing Spanish interpretation. So we actually have two language channels that folks can access tonight. So Avery, would you direct folks to access the language function? And then Cristina, would you also direct folks to use the Spanish function? And then we can move on to the program after that. Okay, so once again, welcome for anybody that recently joined us. My name is Stacy. I'm very grateful that so many people want to share this hour together. And today our format is that we want to have a casual conversation about CLAM and our work on the horizon, and also share what we've been up to in this past year. And much of that work has been behind the scenes. I'd like to encourage conversation, so everyone's welcome to enter questions into the chat, and we have my colleagues Stephanie and Mari who are monitoring the chat and can help make sure that we get to as many comments or questions as possible before the end of the hour. And if you're so moved right now, you might want to share a bit about yourself in the chat personally, like your name and something that connects you with CLAM also. As you know, CLAM is a membership organization, and we encourage membership to ensure that we have connection with the community, that we amplify our voice, and we build power. So your advocacy and financial support advances our cause to create affordable housing around Tomales Bay. If you're not already a member of CLAM, we've just launched our annual membership drive, so please consider joining. To start off the conversation tonight, I'd like to celebrate the fact that this is CLAM's 20th anniversary. CLAM has created 20 homes, facilitated more than 20 others through local organizations, and has many more on the way. I'm so honored to be in the company of so many thoughtful and creative people that have been incredibly effective at getting this thing done. What we've done as a CLT together is truly remarkable, and it's only the start. So I hope you'll join us on the 27th of May for CLAM's annual meeting and celebration, where we're going to be taking stock of our last 20 years and celebrating all of this great progress. So I'd also like to acknowledge this moment in a different way. I know that we all have come through a very hard period this year. There has been isolation and illness and financial insecurity and intolerable racial injustice, and the need to demand over and over that Black lives and Brown lives do matter. There's been violence and reckoning and political intensity and wildfires and homeschooling and transitions, and for some, unfortunately, also death. But you know, there are also new leaves that have grown on that battered vine, and we have been reminded of some of those valuable lessons that we all also deeply know and probably hold dear. Simple things like walks, the healing power of nature, new ways of connecting, and the power of every voice in social change, and our appreciation for human kindness. And of course, the new culture of doing much of this together, even as we're apart. So I want to say welcome and thank you for joining our conversation. I feel spring is in the air. I feel the light and more color, and I hope that the winds blow positively and warmly into our next transition. So now I'd like to invite Ruth to talk a little bit about how our renters have been doing during this past year. Ruth?
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. So I just want to share a little update with y'all about our CLAM's residents. So CLAM started a rental assistance fund last year because of the pandemic. We called it the Resilience Fund. And that fund helped stabilize CLAM's residents. A little over half of CLAM's residents requested rental assistance at least once during the pandemic. 2 households needed assistance for over 9 months. And about 36% of residents experienced persistent declines in income. Most CLAM residents have been able to resume employment by now and are more or less stable. Numerous West Marin households were also able to receive rental assistance from West Marin Community Services and the county as well. What we did not see short-term rentals converting to long-term rentals. We saw that in San Francisco, but not in West Marin. We saw out here property values soaring as people fled the cities and had the ability to purchase homes in West Marin, paying cash, sight unseen, and no contingencies. Some homes that were valued at $1 million before the pandemic are now valued at $1.5 million or more. So what was already a challenging environment for CLAM to try to add properties to the land trust model is now even more challenging. Stacy, back to you, I think.
Thank you, Ruth. Here I am. Great. Well, you know, we have, excuse me, we have at CLAM always had the goal of creating homes within community. And that has been a mission to put homes into throughout Tomales Bay, in Point Reyes, in Olima, in Inverness, and also in the future up in Marshall and Tomales. With prices, as Ruth said, with over $1 million per home, this is a tall order. But fortunately, property owners are coming forward with ideas of partnering with CLAM, and we're stepping into new ways to collaborate with people on an individual level. And we're calling this collaborative approach Community Housing Solutions, and Ruth is going to talk about it a little bit more in a moment. But we are currently building the knowledge and resources to work with individual homeowners in a variety of situations that will enable homeowners to gain what they need, while we're also supporting new, forever affordable homes in the community. So at CLAM, we've been saying that everyone can be a part of the solution, and we really believe that we can make a big difference for our community in a way that directs benefits for people who need stable, affordable homes, but also benefits homeowners and their future ability to stay in place.
So I want to explain a little bit more about community housing solutions that Stacy was talking about. Creating scattered site housing has always been CLAM's approach and continues to be one of the best ways to pursue acquisitions. So you might think of community housing solutions like a tree with several branches. One branch is bequeaths. Some people can afford to generously donate their homes to CLAM in their will and ensure that their home will benefit the community as affordable housing long after their life is over. One such CLAM donor had an heir she also wished to leave something to. So the arrangement is that CLAM will pay a predetermined sum for her home when her life ends, and that sum will go to her niece. So that's one example of a creative way to leave a home to CLAM, yet also meet the need to support an heir. Some seniors are struggling to stay in their homes as they age, and they cannot afford to donate their home. So another branch of the community housing solutions tree is an age in place program that we've been developing. Currently, we have 2 seniors considering entering into a retained life estate with CLAM. In a retained life estate, the homeowner transfers the deed of the home to CLAM, but retains the right to live there for the rest of their life. CLAM buys the remainder interest in a home at a price that enables us to ensure that the home will always be affordable housing for the community, yet also meets the needs of the homeowner. We're striving to create mutually beneficial agreements. CLAM can also act as a partner to help manage and finance critical repairs that might be needed. I want to mention that we learned about both of these seniors through other people, not directly through the seniors themselves. So please keep CLAM's Age in Place program in mind, as you might know people who could benefit from it. Another branch of the community housing solution tree is ADUs and JADUs. That's like second units and junior second units. We've helped homeowners create ADUs and JADUs on their properties for several years now. 24 homeowners have received our help in exchange for setting rents at reasonable levels. As you might expect, no homeowners pursued an ADU or JDU in 2020, but we're now starting to see interest pick up again, and we have one new homeowner interested in creating a JDU. If you're not familiar with what a JDU is, junior accessory dwelling unit, it's taking an existing bedroom and turning it into like a private studio apartment with its own entrance and a kitchenette, not a full kitchen, but a kitchenette. And it's easier than adding an ADU because it doesn't usually require a septic upgrade because it doesn't increase the number of bedrooms on a house. Last but not least, one more branch of community housing solutions tree is co-housing solutions. I have a list of about a dozen households interested in purchasing a property with another household as tenants in common, also known as TIC. Buying property together with others makes acquisition more affordable. CLAM can serve as a partner in this scenario by owning the ground and selling only the improvements to a TIC, making ownership even more affordable. Or CLAM can just simply help connect interested households and support them to enter a TIC arrangement, as we did many years ago for Daniel Cordray and Burton Eubank. So I'm really curious if anybody has comments or questions about some of these community housing solution approaches.
You can feel free to use the raise hand function to ask a question out loud, or you can enter into chat, and you should just say to everyone on the list to enter your question in chat. And we'll take a few minutes now before we move on to talking about the Coast Guard neighborhood. Don't be shy.
How can folks apply for the Age in Place program? Is there a waiting list? I see that one from Mia.
Mm-hmm.
There's no wait list. Just give us a call. There's no wait list right now. That's not a wait list thing. That's a let's see what we can work out together.
And Ruth, should they contact you directly if they're interested in that?
Yeah, that'd be fine. And I can maybe you can put
Yeah,
my
I'll put,
email in the
yeah, I'll
chat.
do that.
Kit has his hand raised. Kit, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? Can you do that?
Oh, Kit, you're still muted.
Okay. Yeah, my big question is to figure out how we can separate the land from the improvements in such a way that we could at least donate the land to a community land trust, and then in some or other arrangement have the improvements purchased by one of our kids with a long-term lease. And I think if that was possible, there'd be quite a few people that might be interested in it.
Yeah, I think that we looked at that as we were thinking about an age in place program where we could do it like on the CLT model and basically purchase the ground from an existing homeowner while they still continued to own the home. And we checked with some other CLTs that we thought were doing that, and they did initially approach it that way, but found out that's too much of a different process. So they just purchased, what they end up deciding to do is purchase the whole property, land and improvements, and then sell the improvements back to the homeowner. So you kind of end up in the same place, but it's not a new process.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
There's another couple questions in chat. One is, if the senior needs help later in their life after they have signed the deed, how is live-in help financed? Would CLAM pay?
If it's a retained life estate, the senior is still the homeowner. So determining what their needs would be later on is probably a case-by-case situation that we would have to figure out with every homeowner and every senior. Everybody's going to have different needs in different situations and different resources, and there's different ways that we can think about ways that we can support.
Stacy, did you want to add something to that?
Thank you. I was just going to add that, we've had several people ask us about different ways to work together, and each situation has been very different. So, I think having a conversation about what the needs are and what the relevant resources might be that CLAM or someone else in the community could bring always seems to bear a slightly different result. But having the conversation, I think, is the best way to open the door to find if there's a collaborative solution together.
Great. And there's one other question about, will you be offering an informative session on tenants, owners in common where we can learn more and meet other families who may be interested in the same?
Yay, I hope so. I have people, I have other people asking the same question, and I'm thinking maybe in the summer when we can gather in person, it would be great to get all these households, anybody interested in TIC together to meet each other and see how we can help each other find properties to acquire together.
Yeah, that's great.
I have a question. I can't stay too long. I'm Annie Hallett. I live in Ted Oates' house on Aberdeen, across from the CLAM project in the Crane property, the 10 acres on the corner there. And one of the persons that lived there, William Now, was hiking a week or two ago, and he came by my house and he said he thought Inverness was going to burn to the ground this summer. It's been so dry where he's hiking. I'm sorry to bring it up, but I just wonder, are we doing any kind of organizing? Because it doesn't make any sense to buy and improve if it's all going to burn down. And I would like to be involved in organizing, maybe make teams, especially training people. What happens if suddenly we have a fire? And I'm glad to work on that. And I'm not a member of CLAM, but I'm very interested, and I'm in the middle of it for sure.
Thank you. Thanks for that comment. Yeah, resiliency on all levels.
And I have a swimming pool,
important.
which is going to be very valuable for fires too. We're very, very dry. There's just huge amount of pressure on us to stop using water. And that means not watering trees. And so the trees are dying. I've been cutting since September when we had that close call with Olima. And I've cut probably 50 to 100 trees on my property, and that's a small property.
Thank you. I think the best thing to do would be to send a quick email to info@clam-ptraise.org, and we can get in touch with you. And if not CLAM, collaborate with somebody within the Inverness Valley. Exactly, the Inverness Disaster Council would probably be the right resource to connect you up with. And all of us really need to be mindful about the coming potential fire season for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of people entering that in chat. Inverness Disaster Council, Lynn Axelrod is involved in that. So if you need help tracking down the right person, Annie, let us know. But and there, Rhonda Cutter put a nice
great. Thank you,
link
Rhonda.
also. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I wanted to go back to that. Ariane Dar from Bolinas Community Land Trust indicated that they would also like to do a TIC, Tenants in Common Meet and Greet, across housing organizations. So yeah, CLAM has been working with other West Marin housing organizations, including San Geronimo Affordable Housing Organization. So yeah, maybe we'll do something together. It's great.
Thanks, Ariane, for mentioning that. Are there any more questions on age in place or how to collaborate? creative ideas to work with CLAM together? Seeing none. All right, we can still pick up other questions in the chat and loop back out at a future time.
Okay, you're on.
Great, thanks. So, I think our next topic is talking about the Coast Guard neighborhood. So we'd like to share some updates about the former Coast Guard neighborhood. And as a reminder, the property currently has 36 townhomes of 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. It has a dormitory building that we hope to convert into small apartments. It has an office space and a galley building. There's also a playground, tennis courts, basketball courts, and a lot of green space abutting Lagunitas Creek. So as some of you may recall, back in April 2020, thanks to the fantastic showing of community support from many, many of you, CLAM and Eden won the competitive bid to earn the right to redevelop the Coast Guard. Thank you all for your support, and woohoo! And that happened almost a month after the beginning of shelter in place. So if you remember, many of us that were on that were having some of our first experiences with Zoom and a public platform. So after that time, there was a period of shift of redesigning how we at CLAM do our work, and everyone, especially our county collaborators, were really struggling and focusing on how to respond to this brand new pandemic. So there were some months of pause, but shortly after that pause, we have really got back to work, and our work with the Coast Guard picked up. So for the last year or so, our CLAM and Eden team have been working really hard behind the scenes from our desks at home to put the pre-development pieces for this project in place. So what does that mean? We have engaged a team. We've engaged architects, engineers. We're on the cusp of bringing on a landscape architect. We have building safety experts. We have energy efficiency specialists. We have hydrologists. We have a general contractor that's helping us assess the site and help us understand what's possible there and also what's not very possible. So we've selected that team being conscious of the reality of climate change and our desire for high levels of sustainability, and for the ability to design and build a neighborhood that seeks to be responsive to the environment and very resilient. So over the last 8 months or so, we've had the buildings tested for asbestos, for mold, and lots of hazardous materials. We've evaluated the structural integrity of those buildings to determine what needs to happen in terms of seismic safety. We've looked at identified the wetlands and riparian buffers. We've identified special status species in terms of flora and fauna to make sure that we're protecting plants and animals. We have connected with many regulators and many different agencies that will help collaborate in this project, including North Marin Water District, the county's environmental and planning teams. We've talked to the Regional Quality Control Board and many, many other people that will have some hand in making decisions or review or consultation about the project. So for example, one of the key issues that we're really working and trying to crack right now is the water systems on the property. So CLAM is looking at the site in a holistic way to address the issues of both water and wastewater. And if you recall, there is no septic system on the property. So this is something that we're going to need to develop from the ground up. There is a sewer system, but it went to tanks and all the effluent was pumped out for all those years. So we need to create a whole new holistic wastewater system on the site. So right now we're looking at potential systems and siting options for that new wastewater system, but also how does it work with the natural systems and the natural water systems on the site? So there's water in the pipes and there's water on the ground, there's runoff, there's the creek. How could we design a site that really has a holistic approach to water and wastewater? That's one major issue that we're working on right now. So all of these investigations will inform a site plan and what is ultimately to be designed and built on site. And your input is going to be key in realizing some of the fine details of that also. And Kim's going to talk about that in a moment. But before we get there, I know there's another question, and that is, how long is this going to take? When can people move in? What is our opportunity to access the site and the housing that's already there? There's a big sense of, felt sense of desire to move in, and we understand the need for housing and the anxiety and the frustration and the fear that goes along with housing insecurity. So I want to convey that CLAM has been for many years advocating for this site and pushing to get this thing done. We have pushed to accelerate the timeline when it was still in the federal hands. We've pushed on the county to help us acquire the site as quickly as possible. And so now we are going to take several months and potentially several more years to create the housing in this neighborhood. But I want everyone to understand that we are still going to push and move as quickly as absolutely possible to get this housing into the hands of folks that really need it. And with that, now I'd like to invite Kim to talk a little bit about a process that's coming up this summer for community engagement.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see everyone and to have this time to be gathered together and to share with you that because of all of the work that really Stacy has led over the past year on the behind the scenes pre-development, we're so excited to be at this moment of a time for community input. And so we're laying out a series of summertime meetings to garner the community's input now that we've got and are getting the research and the study pieces set within the first part of this year. So maybe it's obvious why we need a community input process for this neighborhood, but in case it's not, there's two reasons we're having this process. One is that the community's input that's shared through a series of summertime meetings is going to directly inform the architect's drafting of the site plan. It's going to directly shape what is later on manifested at that site. But the second important reason to have a community engagement process is that it helps us come together as a community and to listen to one another and to ourselves build a common understanding of what happens in this new neighborhood in West Marin. And that's a very valuable process for us indeed. We're also very excited that this process, a community engagement process, is co-sponsored by the Point Reyes Station Village Association. Here, the Village Association has been a main partner and advocate with CLAM, along with other organizations throughout the whole process. The voice of the Village Association as a quasi-governmental entity in our unincorporated area is very important. And so we're just delighted to be in partnership and leadership together in the community engagement process this summer. So we envision a series of meetings happening. We hope that the first one, we plan for the first one to start either at late June or early July. And we'll have a total of 3 bilingual meetings and 1 Spanish language meeting. And they're all going to be at the Coast Guard neighborhood. We're thrilled about that because of the level of vaccinations in Marin. The public health officer has kind of given us a thumbs up that we will be able to host safe outdoor meetings with social distance protocols. And we're excited that the whole community, after all of our years of work together, gets to come on site and re-envision the neighborhood. I'm sure that across the 90 or so of us on this call, there's many, many questions about what's going to happen at that site. A lot of people want to know who's going to live there. When is the lease up going to be? What kind of income do you need to live there? And we're preparing the answers to those questions the best we can. And we're going to have answers and updates for you this summer. So during the course of this meeting, we hope to share with you, as Stacy has done, all the work that we've been doing and our trajectory. But please know that there's going to be a time to ask questions, to get fuller answers, and that we're working as hard as we can right now to prepare that for you. The final thing that I wanted to say that actually has already been said is just to recall for us our accomplishment. We stopped this as a community. We stopped this neighborhood from being sold on a federal auction website. As a community, we advocated for it we passed a federal law so that it would be used for affordable homes and community benefit. Then we advocated with the County of Marin for this neighborhood to come into local hands through a partnership between CLAM and Eden. It's really important that all of us really claim our individual and collective roles in this success, because we've done all of these things together. And now together, we're going to recreate this neighborhood. And as Stacy said at the beginning of the call, this is an unusual year that we've gone through, a humbling year, a sobering year, a year of really cutting close to the bone of who we are and who we want to be going forward. And we are, isn't it interesting that our time of recreation of this neighborhood is coming out of this time of this particular chapter of the pandemic. And so all of our values are at play. Our need for climate resiliency and working within the beautiful limits of the natural environment is at play here. And the genius of who we are and what we can create together is also at play for us. So with that, we'd like to just take some questions or comments that you have, acknowledging that there will be further opportunity a short way down the road to get more questions answered.
I do want to say Michael Newman had indicated an interest in asking a question. Michael, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
I am now unmuted. Yes, it was a pleasure to listen to Kim and Stacy talk about the Coast Guard property. And as a brand new resident here in Marshall and in the area, I'd just like to offer my support and as a volunteer, in other words, to help you all. I'm a professor of sustainable urbanism, and this is very much in my bailiwick, and I've done a lot of community development with community work groups over the decades, including hundreds of visits to Point Reyes in the 90s when I was doing my doctorate at Cal in city planning. So I'm just here as a new resident saying good work, and I look forward, if you see fit, to trying to contribute whatever I can.
Oh, wonderful. Michael, thank you so much. Welcome to Marshall. Welcome to West Marin.
And let us know how to get in touch with you.
I will do that. This is the 4th time I've moved to California.
4th time's a charm, Michael.
That's what I've been told by all the locals, so I feel very welcome. Thank you.
So we have another question from Pamela Bridges. Do you have an experienced permaculture sustainability consultant on board now to interface with architects, septic engineers, and county staff? If so, who is that person to create a successful project with sustainability and resiliency? Now would be the time. Do you want to take that, Kim? And then we have,
Sure.
then we'll move on to other questions.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, this is, thank you very much, Pamela, for raising this. We have had conversations. Some of us on this call know Penny Livingston and James Stark. They are permaculture educators and leaders in the field, and they are also CLAM founders. And so we've had a great couple of conversations with both Penny and James, and they have offered their support and their knowledge going forward throughout this project. So we're very excited about that. And we also know that there's a lot of people who hold sustainability expertise in different areas in this community. And we look forward to, just like Michael has done, people coming forward and us having individual and also collective conversations. That will be part of the community engagement process in those summer meetings. We can put our best minds and ideas into utilizing permaculture principles on the site to see how we can shape a very climate resilient, in natural balance neighborhood, and also how that will affect our larger town and community.
Great.
Thanks again. That's very important.
So either Sydney or Alan Bortel have a question. You want to unmute yourselves? And nice to see you, Sydney.
Hi.
Alan. Hi, Alan.
Yeah, the question I have is, I've lost track of the structure that finally developed. Did the county tender the property to CLAM, or what is the county's role at this point in time in terms of ownership or former ownership?
Okay, I can answer that. Thank you, Alan. Currently, the county owns the Coast Guard property. And as of a couple months ago, we have an exclusive negotiating agreement with Marin County that sets out some milestones that our team will achieve. And that will enable us to move into the next phase, which will be a development agreement. And that will essentially be a real estate contract where we will get into contract with the county. And CLAM's intent has always been to own the land. And so we will be working with the county to ensure that that happens. There's no surety at this point about that, but it's our full intent, and we've made that clearly our intent throughout. So we look forward to working with our county collaborators to that end.
Thanks, Stacy.
Stacy, is there, as to the county's role here, is it set in the county's mind that this is rental housing and none of the units would be set up for sale in some form? Or has that been finally decided that it will be rental housing that CLAM will develop and hold in its portfolio?
Thanks. Yeah. Right now we're planning to have all 50 units be rental housing. I think down the road, there's some question about whether the property could be converted into maybe a cooperative ownership scenario. Those are the kinds of things that we are investigating now in pre-development and looking at. But at this point, it'll be 50 units of, we hope 50 units of rental housing. Yeah. And I noticed there was also a question from Susan Brayton about our partner, Eden Housing, and maybe this is the perfect time to talk a little bit about them. We're really, really thrilled to be partnering with Eden Housing. Eden is an organization that has similar roots to CLAM. They started as a community-based organization looking for a solution during a social period of unrest about how to provide housing more equitably in their community. They've grown to have, I think, over 10,000 housing units in California. They're an exemplary, wonderful organization that has just an incredible chops in terms of building, rehab building, and sustainable building. So we're very fortunate to be working with them. Our arrangement with Eden is that Eden is really bringing the financial capacity to fund this project. They also bring amazing experience in project management and project development. So we're very pleased to be working with them, and our agreement with them is to really work hand in hand. So we, from a project management perspective, which is where I spend a lot of my time day to day, is we make decisions together, we assess choices together, we do research together. So it's really a nice collaborative effort with Eden. And to our partnership, CLAM also brings the special skill and expertise that Eden doesn't have in this community. And that is our connection to all of the wonderful resources that West Marin has to offer, both in terms of relationships and in terms of knowledge that Kim has talked about. And we bring the community power, and we've also obviously brought the project to fruition at this point. So we look forward to collaborating with Eden into the future. And I think in the summer, the folks that we're working with at Eden will be really hand in hand with us, engaged in the community engagement process. So I look forward to introducing them to them if you haven't met already, some of the folks there.
I just add a couple things. One is that as CLAM plans on the Coast Guard neighborhood starting out as rental homes, as Stacy said, with the possibility down the road to transition that into more of a home ownership or cooperatively owned neighborhood. At the same time, CLAM is still pursuing home ownership opportunities throughout our service area in West Marin. And that's where what Ruth has talked about in terms of community housing solution comes forward. So we're hoping that we can create permanently affordable ownership opportunities through the community housing solutions as property owners come forward and we work with you on a case-by-case basis. And at the same time, we're still exploring, even in addition to that, other opportunities as well, both for rental and for ownership. So the Coast Guard is a very important piece of a total portfolio and trajectory of CLAM over the next several years. Another thing I'd like to mention, back to Pamela Bridges' permaculture item, was that CLAM is also working in partnership with several local organizations and individuals. I'm seeing Madeline Hope on this call in her multiple roles with Tomales Bay Youth Center and others, Rhonda Cutter, Leslie Adler Ivanbrook with EAC and Climate Action West Marin, and Lynn Axelrod with the Disaster Council. We're all part of a NorCal resiliency training where we're learning about resiliency methods that we could possibly put into place in this community, both on and off the Coast Guard site over the next several years. So we look forward to sharing that back out with you as well.
There's a comment here from Peggy Day. I think it's just a comment, not a question, but saying, I think it's so important that Point Reyes continues to be a home for local workers and multi-generational families. Thank you to CLAM for working toward preserving this awesome community. Thanks, Peggy.
Thanks, Peggy.
I wonder, Stacy, if you could say a couple things about the financing, because it's not only going to be financed through Eden's tax credit process, right? So we might want to let people know a capital campaign is on the horizon.
So, we are intending to fund the project using it's called low-income housing tax credits. And that's a well-established process for funding affordable housing in California and throughout. And what that does is, I won't talk about the mechanics of it, but we will layer several sources of funding together to create a funding package for this project. That will fund the housing portion of the project for the most part. And also I want to give a shout out right now to our friends at Marin County. Rhonda Cutter, I want you to hear that we are so grateful to the County of Marin for purchasing this land in the first place. The county stepped out there and made a generous purchase of $4.3 million to secure this property for the community. So I think we cannot ignore the gracious commitment that the county's already made to the success of this project. Yay. So most of the funding that we're working on with Eden will go to the housing portion. And then to the extent feasible, if we're able to also develop some community uses on the site, and those are yet to be determined, but maybe there will be outdoor activities, or maybe there will be a building that we can use for some community uses. We're sort of looking at the feasibility of that now, but that will have to be funded separately from the housing portion. And for that, we will be initiating a capital campaign in the next year, or actually next several months, I'm hoping. So while the use of funds is yet to be determined, we know that there are going to be some exciting things that we're going to be bringing forth that are not just for the use of the residents on the site, but also for the use of everyone in the community.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Jennifer Nichols. Unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. I really love so much of what's being talked about, and I'm very excited about what CLAM has done so far. And the one piece that feels a little bit missing today is how are you proceeding to balance the need to serve local families, but also do some diversifying of a very, very white, exclusive, racially community? That's a very important matter for me, and I just want to know how people are thinking about that, and is there still a commitment to increased racial diversity?
So I'll take that one on. That I get all the easy questions.
Oh, I hope it's easy in a good way.
We absolutely are in a moment of racial, of in a widespread, obviously, acknowledgement of the need for greater racial equity across the country and especially across Marin. And we're also at a moment locally where we have a historic patterns of gentrification in this community, which oftentimes first and foremost displaces our families of color out of this community. And so we're kind of holding all of this reality right now. And Jennifer, I really appreciated that you answered the question. This is one of the topics that's actually most on people's hearts and minds. And this is why we're working so hard right now to have more answers in place for you and in place for the community. So we'll be able to address this more fully in June with the start of the public meetings. But it's because it's so important to us that we're doing work on this right now. So thank you for bringing it up. We'll be discussing further.
Great. Can I just recommend a book that's incredibly relevant to this matter, which is called The Color of Law?
Thank you. Yeah.
And it really details what has happened in the past to make America so incredibly segregated. And it's governmental action that has done it. It's not choice. So
Thank you very much for that recommendation for our gathering.
thank you.
I just want to
Second
add,
that recommendation for the book.
What?
I second your recommendation for the book.
can I add something to Jennifer's question? I think I'd just like to point out that amongst CLAM's residents, we are seeing greater diversity, racial diversity, compared to the demographics of Marin County, which is like 13% Latino and mostly white. The demographics of CLAM's residents are about 36% Latino, a small percentage of Pacific Island. So that's one way to measure success, is to look at the demographics of who we serve compared to the demographics of where we live. And so if you look at that measure, we're making strides already.
I've been involved a little bit in subsidized housing, and I really fought very, very, very hard to get some African American applicants, and I was fought every step of the way by the county.
Wow.
And I found it really discouraging.
I think this is a really important issue, Jennifer, and something that I think people have a lot more awareness about than they have in past years, which isn't to say there aren't big hurdles,
Right,
but
right.
you're absolutely right that something to really be very intentional about as we move forward. So Pamela Bridges had another question. Pamela, do you want to just speak to this instead of having me read it? Okay, I'll read it. She said she's not clear about your question about permaculture design, Kim. Does speaking with Penny and Richard mean as paid consultants on board from the beginning, or speaking to other members of the community? She's hoping the sustainability consultant remains on the project from day one to collaborate on all varied departments, someone involved in all aspects and have a holistic approach.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So Pamela, we're not in contract with Penny and James, but we're in conversation about what's the right relationship going forward. We just had initial conversations with them where there's been affirmation on both sides to have them accompany this process going forward. So we're just early on in it, and we'd be happy to talk with you further about it. I'm not sure if that answers your question though.
I think some of these questions that are getting into this kind of detail, as Kim said about the community engagement process over the summer, there'll be a lot more opportunity for longer conversations. So we don't want to cut anybody off, but I think we're getting close to the end of the hour. So if there are any other questions, we'll certainly be able to circle back on all of these over the next few months.
I will just add here that the kinds of sustainability measures that we envision and that the community will also come forward with are something that will probably be we'll have an initial input, and that'll be incorporated into the site plan, and it will move in the ways with permitting it needs to move. But then we will be looking for ways to engage the community longer term in sustainability measures and maybe in some other areas in the neighborhood's development over the years or year and a half of its development work. So it's very important to us to look for ways that the community can be meaningfully engaged throughout the process. First, starting with these community meetings over the summer, and then we'll look for what the next iteration of engagement looks like, especially on the sustainability front.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. Well, I see that we're getting close to the end of the hour. I wonder if anyone has any additional questions. You can put them in the chat, and also we can gather these questions and then bring them forward as we communicate more out through CLAM Bites or other venues that we use. We can share answers and as we gather more information. So,
You ready to?
yeah. Oh, thank you. I see a note about using KWMR as a great venue. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll be in touch.
Great.
So, now's the time where we'd like to just meet you over at the Dance Palace or at the bar and just have a bunch of little conversations like we usually do after community meetings. But we'll just say here that we really look forward to seeing you again at our annual meeting on May 27th at 7 o'clock, and that we will have a chance to further discuss the community housing solutions and further updates on the Coast Guard work, as well as celebrate, folks, the 20 homes that CLAM has created in 20 years and the 20 additional homes that property owners have created in partnership with CLAM on our way to the new homes that we'll be creating in the Coast Guard neighborhood and that other people are coming forward with from our community right now. It's extraordinary, isn't it? As a community land trust, we are actually helping to return to balance so that the community can have stability and a living community, thriving community as we go forward. It's amazing what all of us have done together as a team, and we want the chance to celebrate that with you on May 27th and to further discuss the projects at hand. It's also why becoming a member is so important of your local community land trust. We know we've got folks here from San Geronimo and BCLT. Make sure you join those CLTs and make sure you join CLAM, because together we are building power to restore a necessary balance in our community. And together we are acquiring and owning land and housing for the community's benefit right now and for the future. We can't thank you enough. You're an inspiration to us every day, and we're very happy to be at this moment. So thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Great program.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Clam.
Kit.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christina.
Great, thanks.
See you soon.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christina.
Thanks for joining, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rhonda.
You're welcome. Hope to see you all in person sometime soon. We'll get there. We'll
Yeah.
get there.
There. Thanks for all you're doing.